Welcome back, and this episode we're going to finish off some of the bits and pieces that we made last week and get them all welded in. All right, so if you remember last episode, we got these dry fit into place. Everything's looking good. Everything's lining up. We made all of these bits and pieces at the back here, but there's still a little bit of work to be done on those. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this outer sill here so that I can mark this heavy metal piece that we made that holds the seatbelt mount for the driver's side. And we need to put inside, a nut. And I picked up some special nuts for that. So we need to mark that out, drill a hole, and put that in. Now, on the inside here, also, we need to put a tab along the bottom of this piece here, and we need to drill a hole in it so that we can actually reach that nut there. So that's going to be the first thing that we're going to get done. So let's take this apart and get started on that. That bolt is put in place, I need to actually take a look on the inside here. As you can see, this piece that I made right here, the way it goes in, it actually is a little shy of the flange that's here. So rather than cut the flange, I'm going to put a little step in, which will give a nice seat along here. That has the added benefit that at the back corner there's a little hole. It'll lap over that and cover it, give it a bit of extra support. So I am just clamping a small piece into place here. I'm going to tap it down over the edge, then flip it over and tap it back up, and that'll just give me a little tiny step in it, the thickness of the material. Well, I've welded on the nut here that is going to be for the seatbelt mount, and you saw me welding up the inside piece, and what I did is I drilled a matching hole in it there so that everything will line up perfectly. That way the actual part that holds the seatbelt will get bolted in here. I may need to open this up a little bit for the little plastic grommet. I think there's a plastic grommet that goes with it, but that'll be easy enough to do if it's needed. I'll probably just double check the seatbelt parts just to double check that right away, and that way I don't need to worry about it later. over here on the car, the next step, before I can actually weld those into place, I need to finish weld all of the repair pieces that I put in there. But I also need to get in here, remove this part, and I need to grind away all the old weld so that the new sill sits down nice and tight. I have a small relief cut that I had to make here in order to match up with the part here. It's slightly different than the original car. So that will be next on the agenda, followed by remaking this piece, because in order to get it straight, it needs to be a different size. It's wrong. So I'll have to bend up one of those. So let's get to removing and a lot of tin welding. Now that I've got all this cleaned up in here, I also cleaned up on the inside as well, where I'm going to be welding all here. Now what I've got to do is this one's already been seam welded from the back side. So what I have to do now is I've got to weld down the front and across here, and up in here, as well as at the inside here. So let's pull out the welder and let's do that. And then there's a couple, little spot holes and stuff that I'm just gonna scrape down and give a cleaning to. And I don't know why they have holes here, but probably like for holding the carpet down or something, using screws, or I don't know, man. This floor is like Swiss cheese with screw holes in it for I don't know what. There's a bit of rust that has to be fixed, but I'll get to that later on. So let's pull out the welder and let's get this welded. That there was an hour's worth of welding. So speeding it up really speeds it up. Not the prettiest. Come on. I mean, like, honestly, I'm not a welder. I'm just figuring this out as I go along here. So I'd consider, I started over here, right? And it's pretty ugly, and then as it goes along, still ugly, but then I started to get a hang of it, and then I got into some thicker material where there's a brace in behind here, and it kind of allowed it to cool down. I think you noticed I put a big copper heat sink in behind, and once I put the copper heat sink in behind, I was burning through here, but then it started to get better. So, if you're ever doing welding or TIG welding, grabbing a big hunk of copper and using it to soak up the heat really, just improve the weld all the way along. So that whole face side is done. As I said, this was done from the back side in another video. I still have some holes to fill in the top, and I have to weld in this, but I think I'm going to weld this one as well from the back side. It's just going to be easier. There's just no easy way with all these bars and stuff in the way where, I've gone and braced everything that I can get in there cleanly and do it nice. So I'll do that one from the back side as well. And then I got to decide what I'm going to do with this here, since I I cut out this sliver. I think that's a bit too big of a gap for me to weld on something this thin. So I'm probably going to have to put a piece in there or something, or maybe cut away even more and just do 2 welds and do something like that. But I am running low on gas, so I'm going to grind all this down and then see where I go from there. Well, I'll consider that golden. It doesn't look the greatest, but on the back side, it's under the car, it's hidden, and here it's actually going to be boxed inside the sill. So it's a great place for me to practice and learn how to weld thin material. I won't consider it perfect, but it's good enough. So, yeah, by the time I get everything, welded up, right? Let me just zoom. I don't want to zoom out. By the time I get everything welded up in the hidden spots, I should be good enough to do the fenders and the other stuff on the outside that I want to do. So anyway, that's where we're at now, and let's keep going. That's not bad at all for $30. Yeah, it does spray a fair bit, but I have it turned way down, like just not even a quarter, like an eighth of a turn, even just to get the bare minimum to spray out. And it did a really good job of just cleaning off that scaly surface rust there, so I can weld against it. So yeah, this was an absolute win, and I'm using my compressor is like one of these little tiny things that only has like a 5-gallon tank on it. It's like those double tanks. It is a dirt cheap, compressor, and yeah, it's working great. So definitely suggest one of these in the shop from here on in. So. Well then, so I welded that piece in from the bottom. It's actually getting better at it, which is great. I also used the sandblaster just to clean all the way around these edges on the inside, because it's really hard to grind or sand them by hand. Yeah, that thing worked really well. If you don't have one, get one. So next up is going to be just fitting this piece in place, and I need to remake the back piece here. So I'm going to tilt this car up and remake that back piece, and we'll go from there. Right, so before I can actually put those pieces into place there, I need to put in the inner sill, because there's just no way to get those pieces in afterwards. So, and the inner sill will locate or help to locate that inside piece and hold everything together. So that is what I'm going to do now. Is I'm going to knock the inner sill into place. First I have to actually I got to grind off a bunch of the paint off of it, the factory paint that's here. I'm going to grind off all of that where I'm going to be welding, and I need to drill spot weld holes for this. Because I don't actually have one of the pneumatic punchers. So let's sand that off, drill those holes, and get it into place. Well, that fits in really nice. It just popped into place pretty good. Can't complain. I didn't have to use a screwdriver. My repair, actually, if you take a look, my repair is really nice and straight. It's quite even. The floor before had a bit of a bow in it, and it looks like it is a lot nicer now. Yes, total genius. I am. I forgot to drill holes in the thing. So I got to take it back out now, and I got to drill holes in it so that I can, weld it to the floor. But as far as a fit goes, everything's nice and square. It's a little bit off in here. The curve is a little bit off. Don't know if that's me or not, but if I sight down the edge of the car, right, it's pretty much dead straight. I can't see the floor being brought out at the front that far. It's just got to be the fact that these cars were the tolerances. A lot of this finicky stuff was probably hand finished on the assembly line to make it fit, right? They used a BFH to get stuff just right. So I'm gonna call that a win. I ground away all the stuff I needed to. The thing that I was thinking about here is that the original had holes in the side here, and there was nowhere for the water to come out, which is kind of weird. And what I'm thinking is that before I weld in the outer one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape off the areas where I'm going to actually weld it. And I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll seam seal this here, right? I'll seam seal the places where I'm not going to do any more welding. But once the outer one, what I'll also do is I'm going to use rubber rock guard protector. I'm going to spray the whole thing with rubber rock guard protector inside. And I'll do the inside of this piece as well before I spot weld it into place. That way, the whole inside is taken care of. And then after it's been done, what I'll do is I'll probably take some, of the rock guard, and I'll try and get on the inside from the end and, just spray whatever may have burned off or what have you. But at least that way, I know that the inside of this thing is watertight. Okay. So that's what I'm thinking there. But for now, I got to take this off and drill those holes. Well, that went into place nice and easy. The holes are in place. I threw some weld-through primer on there, as you saw, just to make sure that, I'm not going to end up with some rust on the inside. I was also sprayed the insides and, wherever I could reach with the rust-through primer. So, I'm pretty happy with that. There's a tiny gap, but, when I push down, if I push down on it, it closes up. So I'll get a block of wood on that with a Jorgensen clamp before I weld it. So yeah, that's now in place. Okay, so while I'm not gonna put this in right away, I just noticed something. These are the little clips that actually slot from the backside into here, and it's what you screw the front fender and the back fender to. And looking at this, thinking to myself, okay, so you got water coming in here, and then water's getting in there, and then it's just sitting inside here, right? So what I'm going to do is next time I'm doing welding, I'm going to weld this part closed, and I'm going to weld a shoulder nut onto the back side of this. And that way what I can do is I can use the same stainless steel screw, bit of silicone, and it'll be completely sealed, and I don't need to worry about that. So I just thought I would show you that while I was thinking about it. Well, the next thing to get done here now is to actually dry fit the other pieces into place, just to make sure that this is in exactly the right place. Then what I will do is I'll remove those pieces and actually weld the inner sill to the car. So let's get those pieces dry fit. Well then, with a couple clamps and into place, that looks like everything is nice and tight in there. Still a tiny bit of trimming I need to do right here, just on this piece is a little bit big. But other than that, I am happy with the way in which that all lines up. You can see the hole for my my seat belt lines up just beautifully on the inside there. It's a little bit far forward, but that's okay. The inside looks okay. A little bit of hammering, to this piece here, and it'll fit a little nicer. But all in all, I am pleased with that. So that tells me that I can start to weld the inner sill into place, and then start welding each of those pieces into place, starting with the piece on the inside will get tacked in first. Then I will put in the L-shaped piece at the back here, the light one. Then I'll fully weld those out. Then the heavy piece will get put into place, and that'll get fully welded out. Then this last piece I'm going to wait to put on until after I have put the outer sill into place, just because I want to make sure that it's perfect. In case I have to trim it a bit more. I did test it with the outer sill in place, but things move, etc. So that's what's next on the agenda, is to pop these pieces out again and get that inner sill welded into place. What I've done here now is I've just used a Jorgensen clamp with a block of wood underneath going along there, and a small block of wood. And what that does is it gives me room on either side to actually do the spot welding, and it holds this like really tight. So I'll be able to get a couple on each side, probably up to about here where it starts getting loose again, tack those in, and then move the block along. And that way what happens is I can keep this lined up but pinched really tight together as I'm welding. So now that I've got that set up, I'm going to start to tack weld this, and I think I'm gonna give it a try again with the MIG welder, and see if I can't get it to work. The MIG welder I have, the settings are kind of weird on it, where it's like the wire feed is good, but it's either too hot or too cold. It's like it only has, you can select one thickness, the next thickness, the next thickness, and the difference between the lowest setting and the next setting up it's the difference between not really welding and burning through. So I'm going to give it another try and see with some practice pieces what I can do, and then take it from there. And if it doesn't work, then TIG welding it is. Well, I originally started out thinking I'll MIG weld this, and then I decided, you know what? I'm running low on gas on my TIG welder, so I'd rather finish it all off, and that way at least I'm getting a full bottle and not running out in the middle of a job. But it's just too hard to get in here with all the bracing and everything just in the way. I couldn't get in there properly. It was just too difficult to get in there. I mean, I probably could have stood inside the car, and leaned in. But again, hindsight is 2020. So I did a major spatter weld here everywhere. Using the MIG welder. I seemed to get some pretty good penetration. I learned a little tip the other day, which was kind of cool. And basically, when you spray on the weld through primer, you end up with lots of spatter, right? Like it doesn't want to catch properly. So what I heard was, if you take, well, they said use an end mill, right? But what I've done is I just flattened a drill bit, right? And what you do is you go into each hole and you just give it a blast, right? And what it does is it scrapes away the paint that's there and takes you to bare metal just where the hole is that you're welding. So that way you're not messing up the paint in the parts where you're not. So I thought that was a really nifty tip. And the minute I started doing that, it actually went a bit better. So there's another little tip for you. I am going to give that a grind down, and then I'm going to release these clamps. And well, maybe I'll get a screwdriver in there and just see if I did get good penetration. If I got good penetration, I'm happy. If I didn't get good penetration, then I'm going to have to see what I'm going to do. I don't think I want to be grinding and cutting this piece off because there's a lot there, and most of it probably did. Either way, originally in here where along here in the seam and on the back one where the bolts are, this seam here was actually welded all the way along. So once I've cleaned this up a bit and had a good look at it, I'm going to probably just MIG weld that all the way along the seam as well. So let's get to grinding and take it from there. Well, she ain't pretty. This seam here came apart. It's not. It didn't weld down to this here. So I think what I'm going to have to do is drill out some holes again, clamp it, and MIG weld that, and then I'll be able to massage this a little flatter, but there's a little warp in there. There's not too much actual warpage from the heat, which isn't too bad. There's a little bit of warbling here, but the other part, which the outer sill, which comes out here, will attach directly to this, and it has a really sharp edge that's there. Like the bottom edge of it along here, right, it's got a really tight seam on it, right? It's hard to see, but you can see there's a lip there. So that's going to really help to straighten this out, especially since it's gonna be easier to clamp it really tight and really well and see what I'm doing with the spot welding. So, all in all, I'm happy with, with where this is at. I'm not going to complain about it. It's working. It's straight. Everything is lined up nicely. So yeah, so that's pretty good. So what I'm going to do is give this a bit of a clean down, give it a once over with some of the weld through, just some primer that I've got. I think I might have some other primer I can throw on there because I'm not really going to be welding onto that anything that I'm not going to be able to grind. And I'm going to call that inner sill in place. There's still some spot welding to do on it, or some welding to do on it, but I can get that a little bit later on. Now that I've made some good headway into getting this inner sill welded in, we have a couple more things that we need to get done. So the first is going to be welding that really horrible little piece that we made for the inside into place, and then welding in the heavy seatbelt bracket. So let's take these apart and get started on welding in that piece. Well, I was out at Princess Auto the other day, and they had on sale a spot welder for like $200 Canadian yet. And yeah, that is like one of the most unfortunate names for a product line. I can't even. But this thing is heavy. I have tested it a couple times and it works. So you know what? I have a little bit of welding on the floor to the back of the inner sill that I was going to do plug spot welds with, but since I have this, let's give it a try and see how well it works. And if it works well, it's going to make welding this a lot easier. Okay, I'm just gonna grab the camera here and take a quick look here. Can see there, and on the underside, I mean, that has definitely done a decent job there. So I'm gonna just give it another few more tacks here with this unit. It's got a duty cycle that is it's a 10-second duty cycle, and you can use 50% at 110 on it. So, it's kind of, you got to take your time with it, right? I'm going to call that a win. Oh, so much easier. All right, well, I'll be using that across the whole bottom of the unit for sure, and wherever I can actually get it in to do it. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I was able to get in there and do the spot welds. They're not factory. They're, it's 110, but it's holding. They're well penetrated, and that's not going anywhere. I'll probably end up touching it up anyways with a bit of TIG welding, just to stiffen things up. And also I've got some gaps here that will need to be adjusted and fixed. But as far as holding it in place and doing its job, that is holding it in place and doing its job. So let's keep moving on. We need to get the small corner piece put in place here. Now I won't be able to spot weld that, so that's going to have to be TIG welded into place. But we'll make it happen, I guess. Now we've got that that seatbelt bracket welded all the way through in place. Still have to get inside and knock out some of the tin that they've got a little bit of warpage, and we have to come onto the inside and we have to actually weld out the rest of this piece that we put in place. So that's next on our agenda. Well, I got that welded in. It's ugly. I don't even want you to look at it. So yeah, it's welded in there real good. It looks beautiful. Yeah, no, it's horrible. It's going to have to be ground down. What I didn't do is I didn't weld in this. It's a pretty big gap in there, and it is a real pain to get at because, as you can see, I've got the car tilted way down and I'm bent over upside down trying to weld. And trying to get that, that seam there with these door pieces that are holding the body in place is really difficult. So it's not going to stop me from moving forward, with the other parts on the car, and I can weld that or finish weld that once the body is properly mounted onto the car. On the other side, if I have to replace that piece, which I do, I'm just going to make it fit better so that it's not a pain. These little pieces here are really taking a lot more time than I thought. So that's all the time I've really got to work on this episode. So I just really like to thank you all for sticking around till the end, showing up every episode and seeing what I'm doing. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, notifications at the bell, and just keep coming back. I really appreciate it. Make some comments. I'd like to know what I could be doing better. So if you have any suggestions, that would be great. So thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll see you next time.